Thanks, Ron. And hey, Ron, you alluded to me earlier on. You and I go way back, and I love working the Angelbeat events because of the diversity of all the different customers and clients. We're focusing on finance today, and I've catered my presentation for that. But I want to really quickly say I've been in the business for 25 years or so, and I started with Ron back in the Ironport days, and Ironport had this really unique technology called reputation filtering, which separated it from all of its other competitors. And this same kind of concept is why I came over to Arms Cyber. We have a ransomware resiliency solution that nobody else can do. So we're going to talk about building a ransomware resiliency plan, specifically in the finance vertical. Okay. So we've all heard of ransomware. We all know it comes from many flavors and colors. The definition here says it's software designed to block access to a computer system until money is paid. This is usually done via Bitcoin or some other non-traceable payment like Bitcoin. And they'll give you the decryption keys then to get access to the data. But there's not even a guarantee that'll even work. Sometimes they just take your money and run. Regarding the finance vertical, some of the more popular ransomware groups include Lockbit, Revel, Scattered Spider, and Dridex. And if you wonder what they're doing, their goal is to infiltrate your network, encrypt sensitive customer data, steal credentials, disrupt your business. Then they attack and demand large ransoms to basically get your business back up and running. And because of the very nature of your business, the financial sector is a very high value target to the bad actors, and why you're actually in the center of the bullseye. So let's talk real quick about the resiliency and what that means. The definition up here is resiliency is the capacity to withstand or recover from difficulties or attacks. A good ransomware resiliency plan is what I want to talk about today, and how your organization can withstand and recover from ransomware attacks, even with solutions in place. I'd even venture to say that every one of you have an antivirus or EDR solution like CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, or Defender, as well as maybe some backup solution. But what is your plan if ransomware actually gets past these solutions or corrupts your backups? And that's what I mean by ransomware resiliency plan, is how do you address these gaps? So I want to double click on building a ransomware resiliency plan over the next few slides. But first, let's talk about what a typical ransomware attack looks like and why it's actually important to have a ransomware resiliency plan. As you can see on this slide, there's a number of warning signs of a ransomware attack. And ransomware can actually enter your network in so many ways, whether it's there's thousands of variations out there in the wild, and they change on a daily basis. So even the best of EDRs are not going to be able to block everything, because these zero-day attacks change on the fly, and it takes a while to get signatures or get heuristics or behavior analysis to correlate and identify it as ransomware. So there are gaps in the EDRs, which are a necessary defense. But as ransomware gains access to the machines, in many ways, they then spread throughout your network, infecting as many machines as they can. From a phishing attempt to a vulnerability in the operating system or applications to an infected thumb drive or an illegitimate download site. Once the ransomware enters one machine, it gets to work. The finance vertical especially is one of the top 3 highest targeted verticals, because that's where the money is. Ransomware targets data, user credentials, PII, credit card numbers, and other financial data, and your business can't run without this data being available. So it's critical to protect it from being encrypted, exfiltrated, meaning taken off, and or being held for ransom. And while AV and EDRs can stop a lot of the ransomware, in fact, they'll stop most of it. A defense in-depth layered approach is necessary for your resiliency plan, because nothing is 100%. I'd even venture to say that every ransom attack that we read about in the news, that organization had an AV or EDR or backup solution in place, but they still got owned. This is why a resiliency plan is necessary. So here's a couple of recent news that's been made public. Hundreds of financial organizations were ransomed in 24, maybe thousands. I don't have the exact numbers. And they were hit by not having a sound resiliency plan. You can see some notable attacks, including the world's largest bank. These different banks had sophisticated defenses, layers in depth. But what was their resiliency plan in the event that they were gotten through? Lockbit, for example, had the world's largest bank was hit by Lockbit, which I mentioned was one of the biggest ransomware groups out there. Santander had 30 million accounts hacked, and recently $1.5 billion was stolen by a bad actor from Bybit. And these were all because they didn't have a sound resiliency plan. As you can see in the numbers at the bottom, I was shocked when I read this, but this came from the American Bankers Association. 65% of banks were hit by ransomware in 2024. 90% of those attacks included their backups being targeted, and literally 51% actually paid the ransom. So all these banks had EDR or backup solutions, but did they have a resiliency plan? All right, I'm going to talk about the need for a resiliency plan. Most organizations don't really have one in place because they didn't know what a resiliency plan might consist of. So relying on your EDRs and backups to protect ransomware is good, but do you know how your organization will withstand or recover from the following? Your EDR got bypassed, whether it got bypassed, disabled, or just missed the attack. What's your plan when it gets through? A common response is, well, I've got backups. That should work, right? And, many times it does, but there's lots of loopholes in backups. And as I said, 94% of ransomware attacks will go after the backups. So what happens if those get corrupted or compromised or don't work or out of date? Now, how will you restore your data if those are not available? Even if you do have backups, how current are they? What if that machine was offline? What if it's 3 days old? Is that backup going to be current? And how long will it take to get them restored? Did you get every machine backed up? So even in a perfect world, how long will it take to restore the data across tens of machines, hundreds of machines, or thousands of machines? As I said, the first thing they do is want to spread and go out to all the machines they can, look for data, and then make the attack. And what about your data? Was it exfiltrated and sent to the bad guys? More and more of the bad guys will both encrypt the data on the machine and then try to send it back for further malice and extortion or misuse. So let's talk about the numbers real quick. What are you going to do if you get hit and these things get bypassed? Are you going to pay the ransom? The average ransom was $2.73 million just for the payout, but that doesn't even include the downtime costs. So when you think about the average cost to recover on top of the payment, it's an additional $5.13 billion with a downtime greater than 20 days. Because even if you get that decryption key, it's not easy to go out there and decrypt every file across every machine on every directory across your whole enterprise. It takes time and a lot of work. And let's not forget about having to legally report the breach to the FDIC, DHS, and FBI, and the additional fines and costs associated with that. But perhaps worst of all is the reputational cost. Will people trust doing business with your organization moving forward? Arm Cyber delivers a defense in-depth ransomware resiliency solution. So let's talk about how we do this. We've got a next-gen anti-ransomware solution that's going to make your EDR better. We have protections to harden it, to make sure that your SentinelOne, CrowdStrike, Defender are not bypassed or disabled. We have protections on monitoring the Windows service protection so we can see when bad things are happening and block them. We make them better. We augment your existing EDR. I'm not going to tell you guys, hey, replace your EDR with us. I'm going to tell you, implement a resiliency plan in the event that your EDR gets bypassed. We also have the ability to protect your data. So not only can we make your EDR stronger and harder and better, we have our own ransomware blocking methods, and we have a really cool technology to hide your data for restoration. So we have our ghosting techniques, which allow you to, we rootkit a file driver to allow you to store files that are inaccessible to the bad guys. So whether it's a database file, which your application can point to and access, or whether it's a shadow copy that we can store shadow copies in, the bad guys won't have access to it. And via a single click of a button, you can restore those files back to its native status from a central SaaS solution. Very simple, very elegant, enterprise scalable. So that's how we prevent it from happening. and data from getting exfiltrated and doing restoration. Well, we'll talk about restoration coming up, but we also have blocking techniques. What if it gets through your EDR and it gets through our blocking, our prevention methods? We also deploy decoy files. These are fake files that are out there that when they're hit and being accessed, we know something bad's going on. We can block the processes, block the application, block the attack, and prevent it from doing further damage. We also do file entropy analysis. This is a fancy word for basically monitoring the file types, the extensions, to see if their formats are changing and something malicious is taking place. Again, when we see that, we're able to block it from occurring. And then finally, on the remediation side, we leverage that secure hidden partition for continuous file versioning. So as I said, we can store the files natively in that hidden directory, or we can do a shadow copy of the existing files that you have in your native directories and shadow copy them, which means we compress them, make them smaller, put them in that hidden directory that are then being able to be restored at a single click of a button. So it's very easy to recover, very lightweight, and very, very powerful. Nobody else is doing this in this space. Some of our competitors are doing decryption key harvesting. If you want to implement that type of remediation, we give it away for free. It's on our website. Go to our website and download the ARMS Community Edition. The reason why we give it away for free is because it only works in certain situations. That's legacy type of remediation that basically would use open source code that when it sees encryption taking place, a symmetric key is created, we can grab that. We see that API call, we grab the key just like the bad guys do. And the bad guy says, you know what, we don't like that approach because they can easily defeat us. So we're going to come up with our own libraries, our own encryption algorithms, and therefore they'll never be able to get that API call to go out there and get that decryption key. Voila, that decryption key harvesting is defeated. Again, it's legacy technology. If you want it, download it from a website for free, or you can pay one of my competitors for it if you like. What we provide is a next-gen anti-ransomware resiliency solution. We're going to make your EDR better. We're going to block it additionally, the ransomware additionally. And if it does get through all of that, a simple means for remediation. So I've only got another slide or two left. What your ransomware resiliency solution, in summary, a sound ransomware resiliency solution plan requires a defense in-depth layered security solution that delivers the capacity to withstand and recover from attacks. So when your EDR and our backups are compromised, we're there. Armed Cyber is that resiliency plan. By layering in Armed Cyber, we augment and make your EDR and backups resilient, make them better than they were, and backstopping them when they fail. We are that resiliency capacity to withstand and recover from ransomware attacks. In summary, by adding Armed Cyber to your technology stack, you are implementing a more sound ransomware resiliency plan. Guys, I'd love to give you more information, schedule a demo. We can even do a free POC. It takes 20 minutes to set up. We can let you run that POC. We're conducive for a multi-tenant environment, role-based access control. It's a very mature product, even though you may not have heard of us. We've been incubating in the NSA for the past 4 years. Please reach out to me or download the presentation from the website from Ron. And I thank you guys for your time today. Have a great day.